Hey friends, it is Jenna, what is up, and welcome back to the Board Game Garden, and welcome to a monthly overview slash top 10 games of the month for both April and May. So you guys would have noticed that, or you might not have noticed, that I didn't do one for April, and that's just because I got super busy with some videos and life and things, and I ended up not doing that and just decided to do 2 months in one. So today we're going to be going over all of the games, or I'm quickly going to go over my board game stats for April as well as May, and then I'm going to get into my herb garden, which are small box games that stood out within those months. And then I'm also going to do, instead of a top 10, I decided to do a top 12 for the last 2 months. I didn't want to double it and do top 20 because that would be a very long video, and honestly, like, April wasn't that big of a board game month, so I didn't really have a ton of standout games in the month of April, but there was a ton of great games played in the month of May. So we're gonna do top 12 today instead of top 10, and then I do have a few like honorable mentions that I'm going to chat about, and then that'll be the video. So if you guys want to see what I've been up to when it comes to games being played within the last 2 months, then just keep on watching and give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoy. Also hit the subscribe button down below if you've yet to do so. We'd love to have you here in the garden. And yeah, let's get into the overview and top games that I've played in April and May, shall we? All right, so getting into my board game stats, like I always say, I use BG Stats. I'll put the app little picture here if you guys want to go and check it out. I do believe it's like $6 for the app, and then you can pay additional for some like cool, like additional things, challenges, stuff like that. And then also I recently discovered that they have on BG Stats score like sheets for a bunch of different games, and a lot of my friends actually use that. Instead of actually using the score sheet that came in the game, they actually use the one on BG Stats, and then it automatically puts that into your board game stats. So anyways, let's get into the month of April. Like I mentioned, April was not that crazy every month of board games. I do think I went to a few like smaller cons and stuff, but for some reason I always end up playing less games at cons than I think I'm going to. We all bring so many games and we get so excited about this weekend of games. Unfortunately, the 2 cons that I went to GriffCon and Ragnarok, both kind of local conventions to me here. Both of them I didn't end up going for the whole weekend. I just went for the Saturday. But yes. Anyways, for the month of April, I played a total of 40 games, 38 different games, and then I'm not sure how many of these were new to me. So 23 of them were new to me. And then for BGA plays, I played a total of 23 times as well. I've been playing a lot more on BGA. It's always, I think I said this before on the channel, but it's always that thing that I wake up in the morning, I brew my coffee, and then I go down to my office, also with like my breakfast and stuff, and I just play a few BGA games. I get caught up on all of my turn-based games, and then I get into working. So it's just a fun little thing that I do in the morning in my like routine and stuff. So yes, 40 plays, pretty good. Not as great as the month before. In March, I played 61 plays, which is pretty good month, but in April it was 40. And then as for May was a pretty fantastic month of board gaming. Holy moly, did a lot of things in May. May was a very busy month for board gaming. I went to ClaringCon at the beginning of May. I also went to Canada Plays, and then I just had a ton of like board game days with friends, and all of these different things kind of got planned, so I was able to play a ton of games. So in the month of May, I ended up playing a total of 65 times, 55 total games, and new to me games, a total of 33 new to me games I played in May. I think I had a lot of opportunities, like I said, to play a lot of games, and a lot of them were new to me, which is always a lot of fun to discover new games. And there are so many games that I played in May that are going to be on the top 12. I discovered so many great games in the month of May. So a few of them that I am wanting to add to my own collection. So yes, those are all of the, oh, and then also for BGA plays, I played 24 games on BGA in the month of May. Again, pretty close to April. But yeah, overall, my board game stats for the last 2 months have been awesome, and I am really, really excited for the month of June. It is getting into like the summer season, which I will say that my plays of board games definitely go down in the summer just because you're outside, you want to spend time outside in the sun, and all of those things. So hopefully I'll still be able to do a lot of different board game days with friends and stuff and get just as many games played in the months of June and July and August for summer. So anyways, that is everything for my board game stats. Let's get into the herb garden, shall we? All right, so getting into, like I said, the herb garden. If you guys do not know what the herb garden is, it's basically just a section of the video that I can feature some smaller box card games and easier to get to the table games, because a lot of the times when I make these like top games of the month, often because I am a huge fan of like bigger, heavier, more complex games, a lot of the times those small card games and small kind of party games get left out because it's hard to compare those things. So what I decided to do is make the herb garden where I can feature a few small box card games / party games that I really enjoyed within the month. So the first one that I want to talk about is one that I think I saw Tom Vassell talk about briefly on the Dice Tower. I think it was just like a random video that he was like reviewing this game, and I thought it sounded so much fun. And then I actually at Canada Place when I went to Niagara Falls, Jamie from Foster the Meeple, as well as Tyler and Ilya from Covray, we all went to a few board game stores, and I saw this game at the board game store and said, I need to pick it up because it sounds like such a fun game. And guys, this is such a good game. It is called Piles. It actually is called Piles, a fast-paced free-for-all. So this is a game for 2 to 8 players. It is a real-time game where basically you're doing laundry, which I think is the funniest thing and like the best theme for a game. There needs to be more, you know, like day-to-day life things as themes in board games, I think. So yes, in Piles, basically there are a bunch of different sets of 4 of different like clothing pieces. There's like cargo shorts and blouse and sweater and underwear and different kind of sets, like high socks, ankle socks, dresses, a bunch of different things. And based on player count, you put in a bunch of these sets, you shuffle them all up, and then each player is going to get a bunch of different piles in front of them. I believe it's 6 piles in front of them. And your goal for the game, it is a real-time game where everyone is looking at their piles and then they're swapping things from the center in order to be the first player to get all of your piles into sets, because they do start out just random, a bunch of different random clothing pieces in your piles, and you're trying to get all your piles into those sets. So obviously, like, some people might have the different things that you need, and you have to kind of wait for them to swap them into the middle, and then you have to be like, oh my goodness, I had like some of those in this pile, let me pick up this pile, swap it out, and then eventually whoever gets all 6 of their piles all sorted with the same kind of laundry clothing items, that person is the winner. So it's just such a fun, quick game. You can play with a ton of people, and I've just loved it. It is chaotic, it's great, and I just love the theme of doing laundry. So yeah, that is Piles. All right, so moving into the next game. This is a trick-taking game. This publisher actually reached out to me. It is from the publisher Brothers in Games, and they reached out about their game, their trick-taking game called Slava. So if you've never heard of this one, I believe this is their first game, but they reached out and asked if I wanted to check out their game Slava. It is a tactical trick-taking war game, and I personally am not a huge fan of like war-themed games, but hearing that it was a trick-taking game, I was like, absolutely, I'd love to try it out. huge fan of a ton of trick-taking games. So I grabbed this. A huge thank you to Brothers in Games. I do really like the box on this too. It like opens this way, which you typically don't see in games a ton, but yes. Anyways, Slava actually impressed me quite a bit. It is, I always say this, I love trick-taking games that do things slightly different. And I know some people are a little bit sick of trick-taking games and like, yes, there are a ton of trick-taking games, but I'm just a huge fan of the mechanic. And if you can give me a trick-taking game that does something different, I'm probably going to like it. So yes, in Slava, the cool thing about this one, there's actually like two kind of main mechanics in this one that I've really enjoyed. The one thing was basically before you play tricks, you're going to be flipping over a weather card, and that's either going to be good weather or bad weather, and the different cards and the hierarchy of the different cards are going to change. So actually in this game, you're not playing with typical trick-taking like numbers. There's actually different types of cards. So there's like planes, and there's a bomb card, which kind of takes any trick. There's like infantry and what are they called? The big kind of truck things. What are they? Tanks. Why couldn't I think of the word tank? There's tank cards, different things like that. And then, like I said, based off of whether it is good weather or bad weather, the hierarchy of those cards change. So I really, really like that. It kind of switches up your like thinking process, and you really have to pay attention to what weather it is and what cards you'll want to play depending on what weather comes out. So that's very cool. And then also the really cool thing, I haven't really seen a lot of this in games or trick-taking games in particular, but basically whenever you play a trick-taking game, everyone plays a card into the center, and then you kind of just look at them all as one, and then whatever card is, the highest is going to be the winner. But in this, actually, the timing of when you play a card is really important, because you're never actually looking at the trick as a whole. You're looking at the last card played. So for example, a plane could be the highest thing in a trick that beats everything. But then someone could play, there's like a plane gun, I forget what it's called, but it's like a gun that's meant to like shoot planes out of the sky. If someone played the plane, but then someone played that plane gun, and then someone played something else, you're not actually looking at whether the plane beat that card, it's whatever was before that. So it's this very interesting, like, what card was played before me, and can I beat that one, instead of looking at the trick as a whole, which I think is very cool. So anyways, that is Slava. Thank you so much to Brothers in Games for sending this over. I definitely recommend, if you're a fan of those like really cool, interesting trick-taking games, as well as the theme of like war games and stuff like that, this one I feel like is very thinky and very different from some of the trick-taking games that I've played. So yes, that is Slava. All right, so moving into the third game that I wanted to mention for the Herb Garden. This is actually a TCG that I played at Canada Plays. They were doing demos of this, and from the moment I sat down and saw the art on these cards and got taught the gameplay of this TCG, I was just in love. That TCG is altered. I believe it's coming to retail in September, so I'm excited to possibly get my hands on some altered like decks and packs and stuff, because oh my goodness, this game is absolutely stunning and I love the gameplay of it. I haven't actually played any TCGs. I tried to get into Lorcana, haven't really gotten into that, but there's something about the altered kind of look of the game and the gameplay that really has me excited for possibly getting into it. But basically, you are not so much playing against your opponent to get them to 0 health. That's typically what I've heard is what you do in TCGs a lot. But in Altered, you're actually having this like path. One side has your companion, and then one side has your like character. And basically you are playing cards to either the companion side or the character side, and you're trying to get both your companion and your character to kind of come together at a point. And whoever from the two players gets to do that first or does that first is the winner. So it's this very cool thing where you're not necessarily, like battling, like you are battling against each other, but you're not like hitting each other back and forth and trying to get your like opponent's health down. You're just trying to beat them in strength of cards on their side. So you're kind of doing a separate battle with the character side and the companion side, and it's kind of like a lane battler, if you know what those are, in a way, I guess. But anyways, I can go on and on about Altered. I'm super excited for the release of it in September. But yeah, I quickly wanted to shout that out because it just like blew my mind, and it was one of my kind of highlights of Canada Plays. So that is the last game I wanted to mention for the Herb Garden. That is Altered. All right, so getting into my top 12 games of April and May. We do have a lot of games to talk about, so I'm going to try to quickly get through all of them. I'm not gonna talk about them like insanely long or anything, just in hopes that this video is not like over an hour long. So anyways, my number 12 is going to be a gorgeous game. Oh my goodness, I can't get over how beautiful this game is. I'm keeping this forever simply because it is beautiful. But that game is a Botany. So this is a pick up and deliver game. I actually didn't know that this was a pick up and deliver game when I initially like was interested in it. I just knew that it was absolutely beautiful and it was about being a gardener and you were like collecting flowers and stuff. So in Botany, basically you are a botanist trying to go out and gather these different flowers from different areas of the map. You have this little meeple and you're going out and you can only like move a certain amount of spaces, and you have cards in your hand with specific kind of locations on the map that you have to go. And then you'll be either putting them into a little like glass jar, I forget what they were called, or you're pressing them for points. And you are then going to be taking them back to your estate, and you can like do different like upgrades to your estate, different things like that. And there's like some objectives and stuff. I wish that this game was a little bit more complex. For some reason, when I first heard of Botany and saw a little bit of the gameplay, I thought it was going to be more complex than it is. And I wish that it was a little bit more complex because it is a pretty simplistic game. And I can see after a large amount of plays of this that it would kind of become a little bit samey. So I'm hoping that's not the case. And I'm hoping that maybe the different like expansions that you can bring into it kind of add a little bit of variation to it. But yeah, I do wish that it was a little bit more complex. They do have another game that I think's already finished on Kickstarter. It could still be up, but it's called Le Fleur. And I've heard some good things about that one as well. And maybe that one's a little bit more complex than this one. This one was their first game. This is Duxonium, I believe is the publisher, but this was their first game, so it's probably not going to be a super complex game for the first game from a publisher. So I completely understand that, but just as a gamer that likes really, really complex games, or not really, really complex games, but complex games overall, I wish this was a little bit more. But you know, sometimes it is nice to have an easy but beautiful game to play with friends. So yes, that is Botany. Moving on to number 11. This was a game that I was super excited about. And honestly, this is a fantastic game. I'm excited to actually play this one solo because I haven't played it solo yet. But it has some similarities to a game called Cascadia, which I love to play solo. So I feel like this one's going to be a great kind of puzzly solo game to play all the time. And that game is Aqua. So Aqua was sent to me by the Ops, so huge thank you to them. But yes, Aqua is kind of a puzzly game, much like the ones that you've heard of, like Calico and Cascadia, where you have these hexagon tiles that you're going to be drafting and then placing them into a tableau of tiles in order to gain points in different ways. This one is unique to Cascadia and those other games because you're actually layering tiles, and I'm a huge fan of layering tile games. I actually have a game, I don't know where it is, somewhere back here, but it is Miyabi, and I really, really enjoy that game where there is some like stacking of tiles and different things like that, and I really like how that is in Aqua. But yes, 1 to 4 players, so you can play it solo. I'm super excited to play it solo. But basically you are trying to create different areas of colors in order to place these different aquatic animals on them. And then once you've placed a bunch of aquatic animals beside one another, you can then layer on top bigger aquatic animals that I think I don't think they're eating them. Maybe they might be eating them. That makes me a little bit sad, but you're basically layering on, and you're going to have different objectives. I've recently, over the last few months, discovered that I really love a good objective in a game. Give me a goal in a game and it just automatically has my attention. So this one has a bunch of variation with the goals that you can kind of go for, and I've just been really enjoying it. So again, really excited to play this one solo. I might actually play this solo on a live stream at some point because I feel like it'll be a fun one to play on the live stream. And also it does say over here, solo and challenge modes included. So that's something that I really enjoy in Cascadia and Calico and stuff, is the fact that you have these different challenges that you can go for in these solos. So very excited to jump into those in Aqua. But yes, that is my number 11, Aqua, which I do believe it's called Aqua Biodiversity in Oceans is the full name. So the next game is one that I think is probably the biggest surprise of the month. I have never really been a fan of like social deduction games, and everyone has told me to try this game because it is social deduction, but more so you're not kind of analyzing how and what people are saying, but you're analyzing what they are doing. So the game that I'm talking about is Veiled Fate. So Veiled Fate was sent to me by Ivy Games, so huge thank you to them. This is one that I've been trying to get played for so long. They sent me this quite a while ago, and it's just been one that like you have to have a good group of people to play this. It's like a social deduction game. You have to have, you know, specific people that are open to playing this type of game because some people just aren't as open to it. But the nice thing about Veiled Fate is that, like I said, it's very different from your general social deduction games. And me personally, I'm not a fan of them because I just hate lying and I hate people like questioning me. That's like one of my like, I hate that. I hate in social deduction games where people are like kind of questioning me and asking me questions and me having to like kind of hide what I'm feeling and like lie. I'm just not a good liar, and I'm not a good like bluffer or anything. So in this, you don't have to do that, which is great. And it almost kind of turns more into a like logic deduction game in a way than a social deduction game, because you are more so deducing people's actions rather than how they're acting and what they're saying. So I love that. And the game that we played of this, I did end up winning, which was a very big surprise to me. And I just had an absolute fantastic time with this game. And it was, like I said, probably the biggest surprise of the month. And I'm super excited to play this one more because it was just very different from any game that I've played before. And yeah, anyways, I kind of want to explain how the game plays. So you guys are like, well, you said you liked it, but how do I know if I'll like it? I'm sure there's a ton of videos on Veiled Fate if you want to check it out. But basically, you are going to be given a color of a demigod, and you have to kind of put different demigods. You can actually like move any color you want. You don't have to move your own. Your color is kind of secret. So basically, you're trying to get your demigod to have the most points by the end of the game, but obviously you don't want to just move your demigod around because then people will kind of assume that's you. So you're trying to like secretly move your demigod to different quests, give them points and different things like that without people suspecting that it's you. So very cool. I really enjoyed. I actually like had my phone and I was like taking notes of like what people did, and it was so much fun. The like lover of logic deduction in me really enjoyed this because I was able to like kind of take notes and kind of figure out what colors people might be. And in the end, I was pretty accurate on most people. A few of them I was like totally off. But anyways, I'm gonna stop yapping about Veiled Fate. It was very fun. Huge thank you again to Ivy Games for sending this over, but definitely recommend, if you don't like social deduction games, I definitely recommend trying this one because it's very different from any other one, and it actually was very enjoyable for me as someone that absolutely despises social deduction games. All right, so moving on to the next game. This game is quite the production. I unfortunately do not have a copy of this game, and I don't know if I will ever have a copy of this game. Honestly, I liked this game so much that I'd consider it, but it is it is a pretty pricey game, and it's actually a pretty simplistic game, and I'm sure you guys can probably, if you're in the board game space, you might know, but that game is Foundations of Rome. So I had the opportunity to play this at a board game night, and oh my goodness, I loved this game. It was so good. It's a very simplistic kind of polyomino game where basically on your turn, you're placing out onto this grid of like numbers / letter spaces. So there's like A1, A2, A3, A4, all the way to like A10 or something. And there's a big grid of a bunch of different letters / numbers. And you are placing onto these different spaces in order to then have these spaces out and then place your polyomino pieces onto those spaces. So you're kind of buying the land and then placing your buildings onto the land. So such a fun game. I loved it. It is very, very enjoyable, very satisfying. I did win this one as well, so, you know, I was pretty good at it. But yeah, very fun. I'm actually really excited because I believe they are coming out with a more affordable, smaller version of this game called, I forget, Foundations of Metropolis? Possibly Foundations of Metropolis. Not 100% sure what it is, but I will put a picture of it somewhere so you guys can check it out. But I do believe that one is getting released by Arcane Wonders at some point this year, so that's very exciting, and hopefully maybe I'll be able to try that one out. Oh my goodness, Foundations of Rome, the production of that game is freaking fantastic. Holy manoli. It's not needed, but like if you like really nice production games and fun like polyomino games, I definitely recommend because it was fantastic and fantastic looking. So anyways, that is my number 9. That is Foundations of Rome. Moving on to the next game. This is my number 8. I was actually sent this by Capstone Games, so a huge thank you to them. And this is an Uwe Rosenberg game called Tangram City. So this one, again, was probably one of the like surprises of the month. I loved this game so much. I played it for the first time at Canada Plays with some friends, and I genuinely like enjoyed this game so much. If you like kind of polyomino, very like satisfying, chill, relaxing games, definitely recommend checking out Tangram City. I think this might be like one of my go-to solo games in the future because it is just so satisfying to me. So basically, I'm not sure what like the actual word is for it. Are they like tangrams? Is that the word for it? If you've seen different tiles, basically tangram is like those puzzles that you've seen that are like trying to make a square with a bunch of different triangles. I'll put a picture of like what I'm talking about here, but those are, I don't know if they're actually called tangrams. I think they are, but there's like a bunch of puzzles of those, and you're like, some of them are like trying to make different like animals and stuff. But anyways, in this game, you have those kind of tiles. They're different like triangles and very different from your typical polyomino, which I think is why I like it, is because it's polyomino, but then it's different. So it like makes your brain think differently, but it's just a very simplistic game where you're flipping over a card. In the solo game, I believe you're just flipping over a card, but in multiplayer, you have one that gets flipped over in the center. Everyone simultaneously places that specific tile, and then you go around, and in specific player counts, like some people get information, basically like each player gets a card that they can look at, so they can kind of plan for the tile that's going to be coming out that they know of, which is really cool. But then the other information that other players have is kind of secret to them until that player flips it over, which is a really cool mechanism for that. I don't think that happens obviously in a solo game. I think in a solo game you're just flipping over cards. But yeah, there was just something about this game where you are trying to create like perfect square of tiles, and at the end of each round you're going to gain victory points based off of the amount of squares that are in your biggest square of tiles, if that makes sense. And then you're also trying to balance your city and like garden / park spaces. And then at the end of the game, depending on how balanced those two things are, you're going to gain victory points for that as well. And you also gain extra victory points if you're able to fill your whole board, which is very difficult. But yeah, I am really excited to play this one more. It is just so therapeutic to me and satisfying. So I definitely recommend if you are a solo gamer or just a gamer in general that likes those like very satisfying polyomino games, definitely check out Tangram City. All right, so moving on to the next game. This is a game that I have immediately regretted my decision to say no to this game. So I was sent an email about getting sent a review copy of this game, and I said no, and I don't know why I said no, and then it started coming out that it was a really, really good game. And I think the reason why I said no is that it was an abstract game in a way, and I think it's mainly my fault because I didn't look too much into it, and I've been really trying hard to only accept review copies of very specific games because my shelf of opportunity is getting a little bit overwhelming. So within the last few months, I've said no to a lot of games because it's overwhelming. So yeah, I said no to this one, and it's been a regret ever since because I've played this game so many times and it is so good and it's getting a ton of hype, and that game is Harmonies. Oh my goodness, I love this game. It is a fantastic abstract puzzle game where you're trying to draft these different little wooden circles, and you're layering them and placing them throughout this little map in order to gain victory points in different ways. One being the specific colored tiles will score at the end of the game for like trees and kind of valleys. I think that's what the yellow ones are. And then like the rivers as well as the mountains and different things like that. You're going to score for those. But then you also are drafting these animal cards, which the art of these animal cards are gorgeous. And you are trying to kind of, when you get a card, you get these little cubes on them, and then every time that you create a specific kind of layout of these little circles for that specific animal, you get to place one of the cubes out. The more of that animal's cubes that you place onto your board, the more points you get. And I'm sure you guys have heard about this game a ton because it is getting a lot of hype, but yeah, it's a really good game. Definitely recommend if you're, again, a fan of very puzzly abstract games, much like Calico, Cascadia, Aqua, all of those kind of games. Definitely recommend checking it out. It's going to have to be one that I go out and grab or request because I need my own copy of it because I want to start playing this solo. I haven't actually played it solo, I've only played it multiplayer, and I think that Harmonies will be a great one to play solo. So maybe I will see if I can get a copy, either purchase one or get one for review, and then we can do some solo live streams of it because it's a very, very fun game. But yes, that is number 7. That is Harmonies. All right, so moving into number 6. This is a trick-taking game, and this was one that I actually reached out to this publisher because I wanted to try this game so much. It's not often that I reach out to a publisher. The only times that I will ever reach out to a publisher is when I want a game like really, really bad. But that game is this little game right here. This is King's Trick Takers. So this was from a publisher called Joyful Games, and I believe it is a Japanese publisher. So this one is a Japanese game, but it is imported. I believe Board Game Bliss sells it. So it is an import game on their website if you are interested. But this is probably the heaviest trick-taking game that I have ever played. But oh my goodness, it is so good. Basically, you are each round going to be drafting different characters, and I cannot explain to you how adorable these characters are. There is just something about these cards that just make me so incredibly happy, and I need some stuffies of these characters ASAP. Joyful Games, if you're watching this, you need to make stuffed animals of some of these characters because they are the cutest things in the world. But not only is it adorable, but it is a fantastic trick-taking game. If you enjoy trick-taking and you want to kind of bring it to the next level, this game is absolutely insane. It is a pretty complex trick-taking game, but once you get the hang of all of the different characters and stuff, it becomes easier. But basically you are drafting 3 characters, and then you're also drafting your king, queen, and jack kind of family. And then some of those characters are going to give you ongoing abilities. Some of those characters are going to be giving you like scoring conditions, stuff like that. And then you're also going to be flipping over one of those characters to make a bet for how many tricks you're going to win. And you're basically just going to gain victory points at the end of each round based off of those cards, different things like that. You can eventually play your king out, but you can only play it once throughout the game. Your queen gives you an ongoing ability for the game. Then you also have your jack that gives you some like scoring things each round, but then at the end or at the 3rd round, you can use your jack as a second kind of bid. And there are so many different characters, and there's just so many ways to combine these characters and play out these tricks. It was just a fantastic time. And like I said, this is the kind of trick-taking game that the more you play it, the more you're going to figure out the synergies between the different characters and just trying out the different characters and learning about the different characters and the best way to like use them and when to like draft them and stuff. But yes, King's Trick Takers, very, very good. It's probably looking to be one of my favorite trick-taking games. It is just so good. So that is King's Trick Takers. So I just realized that the numbering on my list is completely off. So I actually only have 11 games, and I just talked about King's Trick Takers, and that is number 5. So just to let you guys know, the past Jenna has been saying the numbers wrong. It's top 11, and we are now on number 4. Just to let you guys know. All right, so like I mentioned, this is now number 4, and this game is Trickerion. So the next 4 are pretty big games. Number 2 is not like a huge game, but these are more like your Euro complex games that I love. So number 4 is Trickerion. This one I've only played once, so I need to play this one more. But the moment that we finished this game, I was like, I need this game in my collection because it was so good. I played this with my friends Kat and Steph, and all 3 of us at the end of that game was like, wow, we need to play this again. That was fantastic. There's just this like feeling whenever you finish a really good game with friends and everyone's like, wow, what a great experience that was. I'm glad we experienced that together. This was that game, and it was just mind-blowing to me. It was so good. This is a game by Mindclash Games where you are competing magicians, I believe. Are you magicians? Yeah. No. Yeah. Magicians. And you are going to be able to get these like magic tricks, and basically you are trying to gather different kind of things that you need for these magic tricks in order to perform these magic tricks at different stages, and you're placing these different tiles into these stages, and it is a very complex game, so I'm not going to be able to fully explain it, but you are simultaneously choosing different places secretly to do like worker placement, and you are then going to do it in turn order. So everyone places the different workers, whatever workers you have, you're going to put a card below each of those workers, and then everyone's going to flip them over at the same time, so you're not going to know where other people are going when it comes to like the worker placement, but obviously if multiple people are going to one worker placement spot, the worker placement spots are going to get worse as people go there. So the more people that go there, if you're the last one to go there, your action at that worker placement spot's not going to be as high, which is very interesting. And I really do like, I need to try more games where it's worker placement, but it's like secret worker placement, if that makes sense. So I really enjoyed that. I love kind of, it's not so much like a order fulfillment, but it's like a magic trick fulfillment in a way, because you're gaining those kind of ingredients for those magic tricks. And then once you have those things, you can then perform that magic trick. And we also played with the like black market, which I believe is like a module that you can play with. And it gives you different like cards that you are going to have in your hand that then give you like stronger actions at those specific places. But yeah, I need to play Trickerion again. Oh my goodness. I've discovered that I really like Mindclash games. I've played so far Septima, which I really enjoyed. I've also played Astra, which is one of my favorites. I really enjoy Astra. And then I also played Anachrony, which I loved. And then I've also played Trickerion now. Holy manoli, Mind Clash Games makes some great games, so very excited to play more of their games and to play Tricarion again. But that is my number 4. All right, so moving into number 3. This is a game that I do have. I was sent this by Osprey Games, so huge thank you to them, because this game is so good. Holy manoli. This is Sankore, or Sankore. Not 100% sure how to pronounce it, but this is a game with a really cool theme. I really enjoy the theme of Sankore. It's basically like a university theme, like with students and teaching classes and stuff like that, which I love. Basically, there's a big, huge board. The board in this game is absolutely ginormous, and the components in this game is fantastic. But this one, the board is huge, and there are different spots for each of the different schools. So there's the School of Law, Mathematics, something, and Astronomy. I think those are the 4. So you have those different schools, and you're going to be drafting these students from these schools. You're going to be able to then teach the students, and you're going to be like moving the students up this pyramid of different classes, and then whatever classes you teach, you will then kind of do a little mini game in each of these spots. So if I taught a law class, I would then get to do some sort of action within the law school kind of mini game, which I've discovered recently that I love games that have kind of mini games to them. Federation is also another one that I love that also has that kind of like mini game feel to it, which depending on the kind of place that you go, you'll be able to do like some little mini games. So yeah, that's what you do in Sankore, and it has some really, really interesting mechanics based off of like how many times you've gone to a school and how many students have been taken off that school. You then have like a strength of what action you can perform there, and each of the different schools is going to be doing something different. I'm not gonna go into all of them, but very, very fun. I really enjoy it. And then there's also this very cool mechanic that I've heard some people don't love, but I, didn't mind it. I enjoyed it. Basically, whenever you spend these books, you're going to be placing the books onto a bookshelf. And then at the end of the game, depending on the majorities in each of the different like shelves, because there's 3 different shelves, the majorities of the colors of books is actually going to get you points for all of the same colors of those books, if that makes sense. So in one shelf, if the most books on that shelf are blue, all of your blue, you're collecting these like prestige thingies. I forget what they're called. I don't think they're prestige, but you're collecting these different colored of these, I'm gonna call them prestige. And then the number of books and the points for the books is going to determine how many points you get for that same color prestige. That probably makes no sense, but so much fun, so good. Very crunchy Euro with mini games and objective cards. Just, I love it. So that is why Sankore is my number 3. Moving to my number 2. This is a game that I was so happy I was able to try, and I actually was open to trying it because when I heard the mechanics of this game, wasn't the hugest fan because there is bidding in the game, which I'm typically not a huge fan of, but I'm so happy that I tried it. The game is Skyrise. So this is a very new game that recently got fulfilled by Roxley, and this game is stunning. My friend Aiden actually backed the like collector's edition of this game, and oh my goodness, it is stunning. They have these like 3D boards, these gorgeous like buildings and stuff. They are going to be, is it bidding? I think it is bidding. But you're placing out your different, you have like a bunch of different buildings with different numbers, and you are bidding for these different spots. So basically someone starts off the bid with one of their kind of buildings with the number face up, and then the next person has to place adjacently to that building with a higher number. It's gonna go until all players have passed and one player has won. Every other player takes their buildings off, and then the player that won flips over that building that they won with, and then that building is just there. And basically you're trying to collect these different tokens in order to score victory points in the end. So there's a little bit of like set collection in a way. You also have some like secret objectives. Again, very big fan of that. And then you're also trying to have majority of the different sections of the board, and just everything about this game, from like outside looking in is just not something that I would enjoy. But in the end, being open and actually playing it, I'm so happy I did because I discovered a fantastic game. So yeah, very big lesson there is never judge a game by its mechanics or its looks, because you might end up really enjoying it. So always try a game at least once because it might surprise you. But yes, that is my number 2. That is Skyrise. All right, so moving on to my number 1 game. This is a game that I played, and immediately when we were finished, I was like, I need this game in my collection. It was actually a game that I heard of briefly before, and it's a game that I feel like needs to be talked about more because it is so good. It mixes 2 of some of my favorite mechanisms, which is dice manipulation, dice drafting, just anything cool with dice, as well as polyomino tiles, and that is The Magnificent. So this is a game, again, about being a magician, and you have these cards in front of you that are your different actions, and then you're going to be drafting a die, and then depending on the color of the die and the pip number, you're going to place it on one of your cards, and then that's going to determine the color of your action as well as the strength of your action. And then at the end, depending on the dice that you have on your cards, you're gonna have to pay a certain amount of money depending on them. If you pick all of the same colors of dice, you will have to pay more. So you're wanting to go for the same colors to kind of build an engine, but then not too much because then you'll have to pay a ton, which I think is a very cool mechanism. But then you're also collecting these different tiles to place into your polyomino area. You're gaining rewards. You have different objectives, again with the objectives. It was just so good, and I could not stop thinking about it after the fact, and apparently it's a very good solo, so the moment that I can get my hands on a copy of The Magnificent, you best believe I'm getting it because it was so good, and that is why it is my number 1. All right, so I rushed through that a little bit because my battery on my camera is dying, but I quickly wanted to do a little bit of an honorable mention to 3 games. One is Robo Rally. Oh my goodness, this game was so much fun. I played it with some friends, and I kind of want to get it because it was a very fun real-time chaotic game of moving robots around trying to get to different flags. It gave me Thunder Road Vendetta vibes in a way, but so much more fun and chaotic and really good time. So that is Robo Rally. I also wanted to give a shout out to Ride the Rails, which I've never played a train game. I've never been interested in train games, but that was one that I very much so enjoyed. So Ride the Rails. And then lastly, I played a game called Roll and Bump, which kind of had some Yahtzee aspects to it, and then also placing onto these different cards. And then if your dice were still on the cards by the time it got back to you, then you got those cards into a tableau that you scored at the end of the game. Such a fun game, and I feel like it's a little bit of a hidden gem because I haven't heard a lot of people talk about it. So anyways, those were my 3 little honorable mentions for the end of the video. But before this camera dies, I'm going to end it off here. So I love you guys so much. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up. Also hit the subscribe button down below if you've yet to do so. We'd love to have you here in the garden. I've talked so much that I'm losing my voice, but hopefully you guys enjoyed. Love you so much. Remember, you are somebody's reason to smile, and I will see you in the next board game video. Bye, friends.